Good evening. Welcome to the second session of information about the potential. Should it be higher? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Man, my wife prefers to take it away from me. My name is Darrell Johnson. I am part of the 9-member task group led by Craig Kennedy, our consultant, who has guided us through this almost 1-year process already. Other members of the task group tonight are John Walter, James Ferguson, and Elaine Jansen from Fort Massey. We have Tim Matthews, Jenna Hulfer from St. Matthews. Tim swears that the church is not named after him. And we have Ken Burt from St. Andrews. 2 members, Ken Moores from St. Matthews, and April Strunk couldn't be with us here tonight, but they were participated through the whole time. The task group was given the mandate to develop a charter, which is a UCC, United Church of Canada term for a document that talks about how we may unite as one congregation. Craig will take us into the details of the process, where we are so far, and what the next steps are. Our ministers from all 3 congregations have participated in many of our meetings and have provided valuable input. This has been a lot of work, but it has been rewarding. We came together with a really daunting task in front of us. Very soon in the meetings, we became one group. Each of the 3 people from each of the congregation represented the church they were from, but we started sharing a mandate of trying to walk through this path, a very challenging time, and it pushed us along the path that we have perceived as our shared failure in keeping our congregations healthy and thriving, mostly driven by financial shortfalls. We moved from how do we close to how do we open, what could be rather than what has happened to us. We went from yes but to yes and. That does not mean to take away from the path in front of us is tough. Even if we do or do not amalgamate, we have a lot of work in front of us. We may grieve our challenges, but I now firmly believe we can become something very special. United Church's discussion is all the time. There's 1 United Church a week closing across the country, and it's a dismal perspective. And from the task group, I and the members of the task group do not subscribe to that feeling of that inevitable decline. We believe that we can create something special here. Bring new talents together. I've heard so many people over the last year say, we could do this and we could do that at our church. And I say, well, who's we? And where have we been? But I think if we come together and our collective talents together, we can become the we and they. It's always in churches to try and find volunteers, but really to be able to turn around and tap somebody on the shoulder when you have more people unified for a cause, it's much more fun. I envision being able to look around on Sundays and feeling part of something, a sense of community, a sense of pride, that we can make a difference in our lives and those of others in need. And rather than worrying about an $800,000 deficit and how we can save money, what can we do? What can we do more of? Thank you for coming tonight. I want to turn it over to Susan Chisholm, who is the minister here at St. Andrews, with an opening prayer, and then Craig will take us through a presentation of where we are. So thanks again for coming.
Good evening. Let us pray. Holy and present God, as we come into this sanctuary from the beautiful change of season that's right outside our door, open us all to the changing seasons of our lives, orient us to the possible, open us to the good question of what it is to be a faithful people. We give thanks for the work and the leadership of the task group members, for their commitment to asking the questions with us and for us. And God, fill us with the Spirit that is the possibility of working together to be the movement of Christ in this world. May no one feel that their voice, that their contribution is not wanted in this place. Amen.
Good to see everybody here. I recognize a number of faces from our various consultations this year, and thank you very much for coming tonight. As Daryl indicated, I have a brief presentation to walk you through to share some of the work that we've been doing over the summer months in anticipation of an upcoming vote. Daryl also mentioned the members of the task group. These are the folks that have been on this journey with us over the last number of months. And Daryl also indicated this was a lot of work. I can't imagine that many or any of them had an idea of how much was involved in this. There have been a lot of meetings and a lot of emails they've had to read from me and a lot of documents to review. And they have been unflagging in their commitment to this project. So what was the project? You know, the purpose was to develop an amalgamation charter for the congregations to consider in a vote. The charter is intended to outline how we might come together as one faith community to better serve our mission and vision. And you probably heard the term charter used a lot, and you know, what is a charter? Well, the core elements of the charter that you will see soon are a vision, core values, the approach to worship, outreach and community, programming, governance, finances, property, staffing, and there will be also a timeline included, a prospective timeline included in the charter as well. Today, we're not going to be covering all of this. We're going to be focusing on the vision for the new church. We're going to be speaking about property, staffing, and we're going to give you an idea of what is the timeline between now and when the vote comes up in October. So just to reiterate the process to date, we started in January, and we had a visioning session. We brought together the task group, the board chairs, and clergy for a half-day session where we began to explore the idea of what could a new church look like. What are the things that are most important? What are the things that need to be honored in moving forward in a new church from the existing congregations? Coming out of that visioning session, we had an initial draft of a vision. We then moved into a series of consultations, and as I said, I recognize a number of people that were there. We had four consultations. The first was on worship. We had one on programming, one on governance, and what do we have? We had outreach. Thank you. So coming out of those consultations, we heard a lot of great information which helped to inform the vision even further. We then had a congregational survey, so narrative research, and Peter McIntosh had contributed their time to putting together this survey. We had close to 200 respondents, I believe, and that further deepened our insights into what was most important to the congregations. Given all of that material, we were almost ready to start drafting a charter, but we had a little bit more work to do in that we wanted to reach out to the regional council and have a firm understanding of what the expectations were from the regional council, so that we weren't in a situation of putting something before the congregations and then having it go to the regional councils and have them point out some challenges with it or not accept it or not pass it. So we had conversations with the regional council felt that we had a good grasp of what the expectations were, and they also signal an openness to reviewing our work and providing feedback. So we have done that. So then we moved into the summer months and really spent the summer drafting the charter. So that's the process to date. The process to come, we had a meeting on Sunday at St. Matthew's, the same presentation. We're here tonight, and on September 26th, the charter will be released to all of the congregations. So you will have about a little over 3 weeks to review the charter before making your decision, and that decision is to be made on October 19th. So our agenda here tonight is to just spend a few minutes talking about the vision, talking about property, staffing, the timeline from now until the vote and then beyond. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So the task group are happy to answer any questions that you have about the material we're covering here tonight. So the vision. As an affirming community grounded in the love and teachings of Jesus Christ, we nurture a deep sense of belonging and community while embracing diversity and welcoming newcomers into our family of faith. Through inspiring worship, creative ministry, and compassionate outreach, we honor our rich traditions while stepping into the future. With open hearts, open doors, and willing hands, we work together to bring hope, connection, and transformation to Halifax and beyond. By the way, these slides will be made available on the website, for you to look at. So, one of the things as we put the charter together, recognizing, one of the issues which is foremost on people's minds is the question of property. And so we wanted to make sure that we, gave you an idea of what is coming in the charter on this question. And what we attempted to do was to take, the feedback that we got from the survey and from the consultations and actually use the words that we were hearing. What were the patterns and the themes and the words that we were hearing from congregants so that we could form in our own mind, okay, what are the needs that are being expressed here? So the needs that were explicit to the question of space and property, and you may, if you were at the congregations, you may remember that in each of those congregations there was a separate question that said, what is the role of space in worship, or what is the role of space in programming? So that's where a lot of that feedback came from. So the things that we heard in terms of worship was a flexible sanctuary accommodating various worship styles and community events. With regards to community programming, multiple rooms of different sizes for education, meetings, and activities. Outreach facilities, kitchen, adequate storage, accessibility for community programs, administrative space, offices and reception areas, accessibility, full accessibility through all the facilities, the technology infrastructure, the ability to actually hear what was going on, but also AV and internet to allow for live streaming of services. That's actually supposed to be environmental sustainability, energy efficient, environmentally responsible building systems. So those were the things that were expressed as the core needs of the space. And so what we determined was that we really had two goals. We had an interim goal, and that was to ensure a smooth transition to a temporary worship location that fosters unity and connection among the congregations, and then a longer-term goal, which was to establish a permanent, sustainable, and mission-aligned property solution that supports the Unified Church's vision for worship, programming, and outreach. So what that translates into is really a two-phase process. And the first phase is what we've dubbed the in the meantime worship location. And phase two is a phase which necessitates a comprehensive property assessment, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Oh, I think these are out of order here. So the in the meantime location, we determined that St. Andrews would be the in the meantime interim location. And the rationale for that is that overall it's more accessible, it has more meeting and breakout spaces, has a modern kitchen and office space, has better storage, it's got the technology equipment and the capacity to do live streaming and a strong AV capacity. It's got more ability to attract external events, and while none of the churches have particularly great parking, it has comparatively better parking. So, as part of this process of moving into an interim location, we also gave thought to the fact that there are activities which are going on in all the churches. There are agreements that have been made. There are obviously traditions. And so we felt that to maintain important community connections and revenue streams, the amalgamated congregation will implement a strategic approach to program location. So, with regards to existing programming, there are key activities that may continue at their original locations initially. For example, at St. Matthew's, there are Sunday breakfasts, there's a Halifax circus, there's counseling services, and the Summer Sounds at Barrington concert series. At Fort Massey, there are events such as the weekly community groups, including yoga, Muslim prayer, AA, and dance clubs. So that's the in the meantime. In the long term, we determined that there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to make a final decision with regards to the property. And we have suggested, the task group has suggested that the Unified Church and Council will retain expert advisors to conduct a comprehensive property assessment of all three properties to determine the long-term viability and alignment with the church's vision and mission. And so this process will include structural and functional assessments, an assessment in terms of which of the properties most aligns with the community and ministry needs, the financial sustainability of the property, the environmental impact, as well as the ability to convert value. So if there were a decision to be made around, for example, selling a property, there has to be an assessment on what's the marketability, but what's the ability to actually realize value for these properties. So that's a big chunk of work, and one which the task group has determined is probably going to take could take years. But what was really important was that there be a move pretty much immediately upon amalgamation to be worshiping together in one space. Now, with regards to staffing, we also took a look and said, okay, if there is an interim location, an in the meantime location at St. Andrews, what are the core staffing needs? What are the essential staffing needs from the beginning? And we determined that in order to realize the vision and to really deliver on the things that were spoken about as needs through the consultations, that there really needed to be 2 full-time equivalent ministry positions. And the rationale being, this is a lot of the spiritual needs of our congregation require comprehensive leadership across multiple vital areas, including spiritual guidance, preaching, worship planning, ministry direction, faith formation, and pastoral care. These essential functions form the foundation of our congregational life and require dedicated attention to nurture our community's spiritual health and growth. To ensure these critical areas receive the focused leadership they require, we recommend 2 full-time equivalent ministry positions. This structure would provide comprehensive ministry coverage across all aspects of congregational life, allowing for specialized attention to both worship leadership and spiritual development while maintaining cohesive overall ministry direction. Other essential staffing positions were a music minister or director, a professional musician to lead, coordinate, and enhance worship through diverse musical expressions, an operations manager, this would be a skilled professional to oversee daily operations, communications, scheduling, and admin functions, a property manager sexton, a dedicated staff person to oversee maintenance, security, and functionality of the primary worship and ministry location, and an administrator, a dedicated staff person to assist the operations manager in carrying out their duties. Now the final point, the final slides I want to show you have to do with the timeline. So, there's going to be a vote, so what happens after the vote, should the vote be affirmative for amalgamation? So as I mentioned, on September 26th, the charter agreement will be released to the congregation, so you'll have about 3 weeks to review those. On October 5th, there is a first notice of the October 19th meeting to vote. On October 12th, a second notice. On October 19th, there will be a vote by all 3 congregations. Now, if the vote was affirmative, then it needs to be reviewed by the regional council. And as I've said, we've provided the regional council with a draft. We've received feedback, but it still needs to be formally adopted or accepted. And so that is a process which could be as late as December 4th by the time they got a chance to review and approve that. It may come a little bit sooner, but as I say, it could be as far away as December 4th. Oops. Let's see if I skipped forward here. Right. Okay, so between December, or whenever that review is, and approval by the regional council, there is a lot of work that needs to be done. Legal and regulatory filings initiated, a provisional council formulated, staff transition planning, financial consolidation, communication strategies for all the congregations, and then this lump of miscellaneous things called final preparations. So a lot of work to be done in between that and an amalgamation date. We have set April 2nd as an anticipated amalgamation date, and April 5th, which would be Easter Sunday, would be the official joint worship would begin on that date. So that is all the slides that I have, and we now want to open it up for any questions that you have about the material we've provided here tonight, and the task group would be happy to answer your questions. I'm sorry. My name is Craig Kennedy, and I'm the facilitator for this process, so I was hired to work along with the task group to develop the charter. Thank you. Sorry for that.
So if you would like to ask any questions, we'll be walking around with the microphone, and we'll ask you to speak into the microphone so everyone can hear the question. And if you don't mind, would you say your name? Why do we have feedback? Your name and the congregation that you're from, just to give us a sense of who you are? Great, and then ask your question.
I'm Gail J. and from St. Matthews. When will the election results be released? Before the congressional meeting or after?
Tim Matthews. The vote results, I would think they'd be released at the meeting. So St. Matthews is probably going to have a secret ballot. The rules are it can be by a show of hands, but if there's a request for a secret ballot, it must be done by a secret ballot. We're going to make sure there's a secret ballot. So there'll be paper ballots. At the end of the meeting, they'll be counted, and the result will be announced. And that will happen separately in each of the 3 churches. And then we'll tell each other what the results are. Is that what you were asking? Yeah?
Thanks, Tim. Ian Johnson, St. Andrews. Just a question in terms of the process. When we're voting, are we voting on a particular question or a set of alternatives? What are we voting on that day? And you know whether it's released right away or made known over time. How do we know what will be the result?
The question will be amalgamation, yes or no? Yeah. So very straightforward. It's not, every detail of the amalgamation agreement. It's, do you want the three churches to amalgamate, yes or no?
Charlotte Sutherland, St. Andrews. What happens if two of the congregations vote for amalgamation and the third one says no?
I'm a lawyer, so I have to field these questions. I think then the task group would reassemble. I think the boards of the churches would have to make a decision. The likely decision is that if two churches wanted to amalgamate, there'd have to be a second vote with that narrower question. Do you want Church A and Church B to amalgamate? Because it's a different question than you want all three to amalgamate. So I think in fairness, we'd have to do a second vote in that situation.
Tim, don't sit down. Alan Heyman here. In our act of incorporation, there's no reference to successors and assigns. And I'm just wondering, has the task force looked at this matter? For example, the assets, the church itself at Fort Massey is vested in the trustees on behalf of the congregation. And there's no reference, as I said before, to successors and assigns. If we amalgamate, has anybody looked at this particular issue? And do our assets become joint assets with others, despite the fact we don't have successors and assigns in our legislation?
This is a complicated question. If our churches were all subject to the manual, there's a United Church of Canada Act provincially that says the manual governs. But because Fort Massey and St. Matthews have their own pre-church union statutes, the question has been raised by Dan Campbell of our congregation, among others, do we need a private act of the legislature to confirm if there's a vote in favor of amalgamation, that the assets of the churches become the assets of the successor? So when Craig said other things that have to be done in the interim, that might be one of the things.
Now, but we may try to clarify it through legislation. Is that it? Okay. The next question I had, does the congregations have any ability to give direction to presumably the new trustees as to how a particular church should dispose of its sanctuary, for example? I know a number of people at Fort Massey are very concerned about our church structure. And if there was something in the charter which said that the trustees, the new trustees, would make their best efforts to do something with that structure other than demolition and sale to a developer, I think the congregation would generally be more comfortable with the concept of amalgamation. And I'm just wondering if that concept can be developed in the charter or not.
So initially I thought we could be very specific about property, But we soon realized that, and this came out of discussions of the trustees meeting, as you recall, across the street, a couple of meetings. There's a lot of technical information that we don't have about the various properties. So that's how we came up with in the meantime and in the long term, you have two choices. You could spend all the money on consultants, engineers, and real estate advisors and developers and so on up front, not knowing if the congregations want to amalgamate, or you can ask the question first and then incur the expense, assuming they say yes. So we opted for the second option. The way it works, the various boards of trustees would become one large board of trustees, and they would be responsible to the unified congregation, and so it would be a decision made subsequently, and no one knows what that decision might be. That's a long way round to saying we don't know what's going to become of any of the three existing sites.
Thank you.
Hi, Sherry Bushin from St. Andrews. I'm a little concerned that there's just one voting date on October the 19th. Is there going to be a way for people to send in their vote to their church after the 19th, or is the 19th the be-all and end-all, and if you're sick or have anything else on, your vote won't count?
The manual says that in order to vote at a congregational meeting, you must be present, and the meeting happens in one place at one time. We've wrestled with the question of those who perhaps are shut in and can't physically be present. We've asked the region for guidance, which has not been forthcoming, unfortunately. So the view we're taking at St. Matthew's is that if we can make the meeting available by Zoom to people who are shut in, it would be a limited number of people. Able-bodied people would have to be there. They are then taking part in the meeting, and the manual explains that there's no proxy voting. You must be present to hear the discussion at the meeting where the question is being asked in order to be able to vote in an informed way. And it includes in a footnote, I think, the words, "as the Spirit moves you during the meeting." So no, if someone's traveling, they're not around on the 19th, unfortunately, they wouldn't have the opportunity to vote. But we hope to accommodate people who physically are unable because of age or illness, if they wish to take part.
Thank you. Michelle Jensen, St. Matthews. Just related to that, Tim, I wonder if the person who is not physically able, because they're out of province, but they could access the link and attend virtually from wherever they are, could that potentially be seen as equivalent to, attending locally from home and just not able to physically get out? Like, does it matter where the person who's attending virtually is located, I guess?
If I made the rules, we could do that, but I'm very concerned that if we stretch it, someone is going to complain and say the vote was irregular.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking a handful of people we'd accommodate.
Okay, thank you. And then that was just in response to that answer, but I wanted to also, just a quick question and comment. First of all, the comment, My great thanks to you all. The committee has done a tremendous job, I think. A great deal of very, very thoughtful, faithful, thorough work on our behalf. So my heartfelt thanks. And I'm wondering, in the meantime, do you envision continuing as a committee and serving through the quote long term, recognizing that some of the work in the long term sounds like it is a good fit for your collective excellent skills?
So when you see the charter, you'll see a section on governance, and we want to get a new council in place if the amalgamation is approved. And it's proposed that each of the three churches would nominate 3 or 4 people, and that there be a subsequent congregational meeting at St. Matthew's and St. Andrews and Fort Massey to approve the joint slate of the new council so that they're in place when the amalgamation takes place. I guess each individual member of the task group is going to make their own personal decision whether they have the skills and the interest to put their name forward, but it could be someone completely different. Yeah. May I sit down now?
Thanks very much. I'm John Finley from St. Andrews, and I'd just also like to echo what we've just heard, and with thanks for these wonderful folks who have spent so much time and effort thinking about this. And thinking about it, when those of us in the room and others receive a copy of the proposed charter, this will raise questions we haven't thought of tonight. And I'm just wondering if between now and the vote, is there a way of handling that, apart from button holding, Tim?
It's a great question, and one that we really haven't discussed as a task group, but I think we will. We'll take that under advisement and get back to the congregations about how we might be able to answer any questions that come up after you've had a chance to review the charter.
This one first and then come to you.
Do you want to stand up?
No, you don't have to.
Andre Klassen from St. Andrews. Having been part of a medical family for a long time, I'm wondering about people, when you say they have to be present, that what about people's jobs who perhaps are not able to be present on wherever your voting day is, just an emergency or something?
We are governed by the United Church Manual in how we can vote at a congregational meeting. And it doesn't include proxy voting, it doesn't include advance voting. It was formulated in 1925. And I was looking at a set of rules for St. Matthew's from 1787 or thereabouts, and it was done the same way then, except you couldn't vote unless you paid for your pew.
Good evening, Al Dakin from St. Matthew's. Al Dakin from St. Matthew's. Has there been any discussion on the subject of the new name for the new organization, in that we currently have 3 entities and it will become one? What will we be called? Question.
We've talked about it in terms that when we come together in the meantime, between October 19th and April 5th, we will work on a new name. It will not be St. Andrews. It won't be Fort Massey, it won't be St. Matthews. We'll be looking for input from the congregations as to ideas, but we will not host a contest. Because if we go, oh, that's the best. And we have to get consideration from Region and United Church Canada as well. But it's something that's really an important thing because it'll signify us, what we want to be. And we talked about having different services in different places, but if we vote to amalgamate on October 19th, then our objective, and those that continue in the task group or join other groups, their job will be to start thinking as one. And if you could see the task group, how we've worked is, again, everybody says from Fort Massey, St. Matthews, St. Andrews perspective, but we've become very collaborative in our thinking, and we've come up with better ideas than we would on our own. So we look to that in the naming of the new church as we go forward as well. So keep your thinking caps on and no contest.
Eloise Lemire, St. Andrews. Going back to the voting and the provision by Zoom, which sounds very kind in principle, but the arbitrary line of whether people are traveling or not, or in jail or not, or whatever, concerns me. The manual, as I understand, does not make a provision for voting unless the voter is at the meeting in person and has heard the preambles to the vote. Have any of these United Churches closing or amalgamating over the last number of years recently, have any established a precedent of using Zoom voting?
I'm not aware of an amalgamation vote or a church closing vote that has used the internet to allow people to be present. I do know that during COVID, many church meetings happened via Zoom. It was a necessity. But again, we're stuck with the manual. It hasn't been modernized.
Eloise, the way you stated that sounded like you thought that if somebody was unavailable in prison or in someplace that they could vote through Zoom. There will be a very select people that we personally know that are unable to attend church physically because they're either infirmed or their age just not able to get here, and we will qualify those individuals one at a time. And when you say should it be open to all sorts of people in different parts, for every decision there's another side. And being able to come and not be able to come sounds more inviting and more open, but it does restrict and it enables people to not be present. And as we're present, we hear things differently. Following the past practice of the manual, the United Church Canada and the region may say no to us even allowing infirm folks. We can't understand why they would, because it's a very fair, restricted process. So does that make sense? Well, regional council has to give us permission, or maybe United Church of Canada, they have to give us permission for these exceptions. And these exceptions will be people that we know personally that have not been able to attend church prior to the vote.
Go ahead, Heather. Go ahead. All right, I have a copy of the manual in front of me. Would that be helpful? It's a very short section about what it says. So let me just add it. Heather Fraser, St. Andrews. It says a vote may be taken in a manner determined by the council. And then goes on to say, voting may not be by proxy or mail-in ballot. Voting may be done by telephone or electronic means if all voters can communicate with one another at the same time. And the only exceptions it gives is for email voting in the council if there's an urgent matter. So I read that to say if we can have a kind of hybrid meeting where people by Zoom can ask questions that can be heard by everybody and everything can be heard on Zoom, that's acceptable. So, which is to say electronic means, that's all I was going to say.
Margot McDonald, St. Matthews. I'm a little concerned and hoping that the Easter Sunday date is not engraved in stone, because I think that it might happen, but will we be ready? And is it flexible enough to deal with postponing that to a little bit later? Where did she go?
I wasn't going to answer.
Yeah, the charter refers to an anticipated date, so that's the target. We may find, once it goes to regional council, that gets delayed, or, all the work that needs to be done. It's possible it could shift that date, but that's the date that we're aiming for.
Glenn Ward. Just have a quick question about the manual. I find it quite interesting. Is there a time limit on the congressional meeting? Is it possible to extend that meeting over a 24-hour period, or something that might say, well, we're having this meeting, but it's lasting for 2 days, and it'll give people an opportunity to come in?
Someone is going to stand up and call for the vote. The people who are present are not going to sit there forever. It's going to come to a vote. And I'm sorry, but we have to do it this way, and there will be people who will be away. That's unfortunate. But every meeting of every organization that happens, people miss because they have other obligations. So my guess is that the meeting will be several hours long and give people time to debate, ask questions, and then there will be a vote. Whether that includes, people participating by Zoom, it still has to come to a head, because otherwise, we could be there for weeks and weeks and weeks, and that's not going to happen.
Any further questions?
Very simple question. You can answer there. Gail Logie, St. Andrews. I'm assuming it's just members only from each of the congregations that will be voting, and not the adherents and...
So at any congregational meeting, if a motion is made to allow the adherents to vote, and if that's approved by the members, then the adherents also can vote. And our board is going to recommend to our congregation that adherents be allowed to vote, but it's the decision of the congregation of members whether to allow the adherents to vote. It's been our practice for almost everything, except perhaps calling a new minister, where only the members have voted in the past. I think that's right. So we recognize there are a lot of people attached to each church who aren't formally members, but they're great supporters of the church, and we want them to have a say. And we've developed lists of members and of adherents, which actually are posted in our church, saying an explanation that the members, as of right, can vote, and the adherents, if the meeting says yes, can vote. So we're hoping we haven't missed anyone or included someone who's dead.
Any further questions?
Thank you. I'm having a brain blip. It may not come back to me. Thank you very much. Huh? Well, I have wondered about that because certainly I am the chair of M&P at St. Matthew's, and I know there is certainly anxiety, and the sooner they could be told something, the better that would be. And I've remembered my initial question. And that is, it's gone again. Does that happen to you too? Whoever said that?
I'm never sure where I am in any given day. So, regards to staffing, well, again, there would be, we've talked about the positions in the meantime of the church, but if the vote is positive on October 19th, shortly after that, the local boards and council will talk to the MNP, their committees, and talk to the employees about the next steps. We wanted to be fairly quiet about that because these people's lives and incomes are on stake. So there's not other points that we can discuss at point, but as soon as possible after the vote, whether it be positive or not, we'll get together with the staffing and say, here's the plan, here's what our plan is. So, makes sense? Going once, going twice?
I wondered if it's clear whether or not the trustees have a specific part in that process.
In staffing or in the transition?
In the transition.
In the transition period.
That's one of the reasons we are, as the task group, by the way, is a recommending board. We're not a decision-making board. It's up to the folks to take it from there. Our recommendation is that we would take, as Tim mentioned, 3 or 4 members of the existing councils and boards together to make the new board. And all of the trustees from all 3 congregations would come together and actively participate as one and engage in the way that they've been in past. So it's intimately involved in the transition, especially around property and assets. And Alan mentioned there is some disagreement about the ownership of the other 2 churches from the United Church of Canada's perspective. So all those bumps will have to be, and trustees obviously will be highly engaged in that.
Interested to know when, when the structural assessments, do you have a rough date for when that might happen? And how costly is that going to be?
Good question. So my name is Ken Burt. I'm with St. Andrews. We have done, I think over the last decade, 2 structural assessments of this facility. I don't know what's been done at the other churches, but in our discussions with the task group, we recognize that the new council and the new trustees really have the responsibility to do that assessment. And Craig in an earlier slide had a list of criteria that we were looking at for doing that assessment. And it's going to be a long process. It could be very expensive, but that's going to be a decision after the merger's taken place with the new council and the new trustees.
Add another piece to that. Collectively, this year, we're proposed to have a shortfall financially of $788,000. So as we come together under one united, initially in the meantime, we will have 2 ministers instead of 3, 1 music minister, 1 full-time sexton. So there'll be an opportunity for savings, reduced utilities and those like. So some of that will be offset by the expense, like I said, Ken said, by what it will cost to have a professional evaluation of the properties, deferred maintenance, marketability, heritage facilities, all those things. And especially when you're working with outside sources, we can't go at the speed we might like to go. If we're dealing with HRM, it could take 10 to 15 years. Did I say that? But so that'll unfold as it does.
Any other questions? Time to close with prayer. Each of the congregations have 3 task group members who are associated with you. And so if you have questions, you can talk to them at any time. You can get in touch with them or reach out to them and they will answer your questions. But we all look forward to receiving the charter. But for now, we're done for this evening, and I ask that you stand so I might give you a blessing. This is the privilege of the office. And so I give thanks for this time together, for the good spirit of cooperation and respectable listening and sharing tonight. Holy God, as we leave this place, may you shine upon us in your way, in the moonlight and in the sunlight of a fresh new day. God bless you all. Amen.
Are we on yet? So, folks, if you would please love to take some sweets home with you. We overestimated a little bit, so fill your pockets with snacks. Thanks.